Well, good morning. Welcome to the unveiling event for Mark Smith Memorial at the Salt Lake City Cemetery. My name is Lee Bullwinkle. I am the Parks Division Director for Salt Lake City Public Lands. I'd like to thank each of you for your attendance this morning. Looking around, I see selected representatives, members of the Friends of the Cemetery, members of the Friends of the Cemetery, and of course, many of Mark's family and friends. We'll hear from 4 speakers this morning in the following order. Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall, Salt Lake City Council Member Chris Wharton, Julie Fredo Smith, wife of Mark Smith, Tony Goliath, the Salt Lake City Urban Forester Division Director. After our speakers, there will be a tour of the trees that are included in the new Arboretum. At the conclusion of Tony's remarks, he'll explain the logistics of the tour for anyone who would like to participate. Feel free at any time to grab some snacks. We have snacks. You always gotta have snacks when there's an event. And of course, if our restroom is on the back side of this building, if anyone needs to use the restroom. With that being said, I'll turn the time over to Mayor and then Aaron Mendenhall. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a perfect morning for a celebration like this. And I see a lot of faces I've known over the years working with the city, and many of you have known this cemetery and, more importantly, known Mark Smith for decades. So I hope you're feeling that today. I am, and it's a gorgeous day for this tribute. What we're celebrating today, in addition to our friend and public servant Mark Smith, is the city's first Arboretum, the very first Arboretum in Salt Lake City property. Let's put our hands together for that. This is the first accredited Arboretum, I should say. And as a lover of trees and a lover of our city's urban forest, I am so glad that we've been able to undertake what is this vision that was a vision, and it still is, of Mark Smith and of our friends Lee and Troy and everyone else who works with Salt Lake City Parks and Public Lands and this cemetery. The Arboretum at the cemetery is officially named in Mark's honor, the Mark Smith Memorial Arboretum at Salt Lake City Cemetery. For 20 years, Mark was a near constant presence here, where he served as the city's 31st and longest serving cemetery sexton in the city's history. While Mark was employed here with the city, he passed away too soon at the age of 55 in 2019. And today is Mark's birthday. So not only are we unveiling the Arboretum today, but we're also unveiling a new monument just over there around the southwest corner of the Sexton's house. And on the monument, there's a poem titled "Pick Up the Stick." This poem reflects Mark's mentality of always doing your part to keep the world a beautiful place. This monument will be the first stop on the walking tour that we'll do in just a moment, and it will obviously be there for generations to come for the public to enjoy. Salt Lake City's urban forest was really started being established over 170 years ago by individuals who recognized that trees are an integral role of transforming what was mostly a treeless valley into a place that we want to call home. Today, our urban forest in Salt Lake City alone has almost 100,000 trees. And they provide, of course, countless social and economic and environmental benefits to every single one of us. In this Arboretum here at the cemetery, there's about 80 trees, and most of them are mature, which means that they were planted long before the idea of a collection or an arboretum was thought of. And what sets an arboretum apart is really the intention behind it. An arboretum is a collection of woody plants grown and maintained specifically for educational, scientific, and ornamental purposes. Creating a memorial arboretum in Mark's honor is a formal recognition of Salt Lake City's commitment to preserving and enhancing this site in perpetuity as both an active cemetery and a valued public open space. Salt Lake City has invested significantly over the years in our urban forest. I want to thank my friend and Councilman Chris Wharton for his dedication to the urban forest through the budget process, and his predecessor, Stan Penfold, who was a long-time support and funder for this cemetery and for trees throughout Salt Lake City. We're just about to successfully complete our second year of planting 1,000 extra trees on our city's west side. And we're going to do it again next year and the year after that and every year that I get to be your mayor. Because we know how important trees are for our air and for our quality of life. When Stan and I were on the council, we saw budget after budget where the mayors were proposing actually not enough funding to even plant as many trees as we lost that year. We lose about 1,000 trees a year in this city. Disease and storms, accidents, and last year we lost about 3,000 trees just in that one-day windstorm. And as a council person, it was frustrating to see budgets that didn't recognize and invest in the urban forest that I think is a really critical part of the identity of our city. Canopies, tree canopies along our historic neighborhood streets. So we work hard. Thank you. Let's keep planting canopy trees. And much to the chagrin sometimes of our urban forestry team, I tell them, I don't want any more of these tiny fruiting trees with flowers. We need big canopy trees. We'll fix the sidewalks. We'll find a way. Big trees. So I just want to underscore that for the fact that we're not just planting about 1,100 trees to replace the 1,000 or so we lose each year, but on top of that 1,100, we're planting 1,000 extra trees on the city's west side. And if you wonder why, go home and look at Google satellite image of this valley, of Salt Lake City rather. You'll see a beautiful string of trees along the Jordan River corridor area, but aside from that, our west side is hungry for trees. And it directly associates with our quality of life and certainly with our air quality. So we are investing in trees, and Mark has been an inspiration for this. And Bill Rutherford, who I don't think is here today, but was a longtime steward before Tony Goliath for Salt Lake City's urban forest. So this urban forest and Salt Lake City's beautiful cemetery and now the Mark Smith Memorial Arboretum stand, I hope, as a living illustration of Salt Lake City's commitment and priority of the connection between us as human beings and these living, breathing, beautiful trees. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Mark's family for being here, and thanks to all of you. I'm Councilmember Chris Wharton, and I have the privilege of representing this area of the city, and also have a very personal connection to this cemetery as well. I have 37 members of my family that are buried here at the cemetery, so it's something that is very personal and to me and my family. In 1847, the year after the pioneers arrived in, or the year that pioneers arrived in the Salt Lake Valley, one of them, George B. Wallace, buried his baby daughter, Mary M. Wallace, in the foothills just above the settlement that would become Salt Lake City. After that example, this became an unofficial burial ground for other pioneers who were losing family members at the time. In February of 1849, Brigham Young appointed a special committee to look around the city and determine where would be the best place to designate an official cemetery. and they ended up settling on this area where we're now sitting and standing. That was designated about 20 acres when the city was first incorporated in 1851. And over the years, that 20 acres expanded to include 130,000 burial sites over 120.9 acres, making this the largest municipal cemetery in the country. It's now located here in the historic Avenues neighborhood and just adjacent to downtown, which makes this a very, very important urban park. The cemetery currently contains about 2,400 trees that provide numerous benefits. And because I'm a millennial, I have to relate this to a meme that I saw. And it said, wouldn't it be great if someone could invent something that took the bad air and turned it into good air, and all you had to do was water it for a couple of years and it became self-sustaining, and then this magical invention would last like anywhere from 30 to 100 years. That would be amazing. Well, it turns out we have that. And of course, I'm talking about trees, which filter, absorb carbon dioxide and other air pollutants out of the air. And they can absorb up to 48 pounds of carbon dioxide per year and release 260 pounds of oxygen into the atmosphere each year from one tree. Trees also help reduce the urban heat island and keep our city temperature cool. They prevent pollutants from reaching into the local water. They also provide a habitat for wildlife and for pollinators, and they improve our watershed by decreasing stormwater runoff. Now, this is a really fitting tribute to Mark, because he viewed the cemetery not just as a place to inter those that we've lost, but also as a place for the living. This Arboretum is open for all Salt Lake City residents or any residents of this valley to come and enjoy. Mark said, the Salt Lake City Cemetery is not just a resting place for the dead, nor a solely holistic site. The cemetery is one of Salt Lake City's most significant green spaces, open to the public 365 days a year, free of charge. Over the decades, the cemetery has had a profound effect on the health of the local ecology and the well-being of the surrounding and visiting public. So as the city council member for this area, I also have the honor of serving on Salt Lake City Friends of the Cemetery group. And I just want to tell you a little bit about that group. Our charge is to try to make sure that this cemetery is preserved forever. So it's not a big task. And to try to do that knowing that this cemetery will in a couple years be full. And how will we continue to fund and maintain and engage people in the cemetery in a respectful way? And I think that having this Arboretum, the first official Arboretum in the city, is a really good step toward doing that. Thank you. If you're interested, I really encourage you to look at the Friends of the Cemetery group. It's friendsoftheslccemetery.org. And to consider getting involved if you are passionate about this space as well, and to consider helping support our efforts going forward as a group. Thank you so much again for being here.
I wanted to thank everybody for coming today and making this possible. Especially I wanted to thank Tony Goliath for continuing the cause in urban forestry. Mark loved this beautiful place. He coined the phrase, "The cemetery is the hidden jewel of the city." As the sexton for 20 years, which made him the longest serving sexton, he dedicated and committed his time to preserve all the beauty and history deeply seeped in these grounds. He ensured the families of loved ones that are interred here were taken care of fairly and thoughtfully. Mark treated every family equally. Whether you were the family of an LDS prophet or a wife of a plumber, you were treated fairly and with respect. On some days, he was a mediator between families who didn't see eye to eye on final arrangements, and others, he was a grief counselor for a family asking why a young life was taken away so soon. He also personally discovered 8 suicides in the cemetery. He always told me that if it had gotten to 10 that he found, he was going to walk away and quit his job. They took a great toll on his spirit. Mark fought hard to preserve, protect, and promote the cemetery. Those were the words he used. Mark was a numbers person. He loved numbers. He had a saying, numbers don't lie. He loved spreadsheets. On any given day, he could tell you how many people were interred here, how many pre-sold graves there were, and how many graves were left to sell. Mark was so passionate about history. He co-authored the book Images of America, Salt Lake City Cemetery. He did this while going through intensive chemotherapy. He would be exhausted after being in the infusion room at the Huntsman for 4 to 6 hours, but he'd have me drop him off at the cemetery so he could come back to work because he absolutely loved his job. He had a great love for trees. He always said that 100 years ago, people took great forethought and planning and cared for the trees to flourish so we may enjoy them in the present. He felt a great responsibility to plan and care for the trees so that the generations of the future could enjoy them also. He wanted everyone to see the hidden jewel of the city and see it and enjoy it as he did. He loved this place as much as he loved his staff, which he considered his cemetery family. He always said that he had an amazing group of people to work with. Okay, now I lost my place. Mark loved and respected all of his staff, and in turn, they all had great pride in their work at the cemetery. When purchasing trees for the cemetery, he would let his field staff choose a tree of their liking and plant it somewhere in the cemetery, and it would be their cemetery tree that they could care and nurture and watch grow. He had visions of creating great alleys or corridors of trees to make beautiful vertical green statements. He had a desire to take the cemetery to new heights that it deserved, including new retaining walls, streets, curbs, to name a few. Before working for the city, he managed nurseries, managed landscape construction companies, and enjoyed drawing many landscape designs. With his background in horticulture and management, he had all the skills, knowledge, and tools he needed to elevate the cemetery. He just needed more advocacy. He fought hard to stop budget from being reallocated from the cemetery to elsewhere in public lands. But it was his dream to see the cemetery's revenue go directly to a cemetery perpetual care fund rather than the city's general fund. With this fund and investing it, this would give the cemetery the funding to start making needed improvements. He started the process of getting the cemetery dedicated as an arboretum years before he passed away. It was his hope and his dream to see it to fruition. I'm not done. If you know Mark, you know he always had a great big smile for everyone with his twinkling blue eyes. His great big bear hugs were the best ever. He always had a warm howdy and his personality bigger than life. He is the life of a party. No, wait, he is the party. He made everyone feel like they were the most important person in the world when he was talking to you. He was selfless. After being diagnosed with cancer, he made it his mission to make multiple myeloma better for the next person. Every chemo treatment he was on was a trial. He was trying to make it better. His motto in life was leave it better than you found it, always making things better. Mark always had a positive attitude. He always looked for the good in every and any situation. A cup half full man. Unless it was coffee, it always had to be topped off. Mark was fiercely passionate about his job, his friends, his family, and me. Mark, I am so proud to be here today in your honor to see your dreams and aspirations of the cemetery arboretum come to life. The dedication and the time you committed have led to this day. Your passion for trees lives on. I love you, Marco. And you did it, babe.
Hello, my name's Lee Triplett. I was a co-worker of Mark's, and he was a good friend. I agree with everything everybody said. He absolutely loved trees, but apparently not sticks. He wrote a memo years ago and gave it to all of us. It's called Pick Up the Stick. That's what was on the stone that they talked about. I'll go ahead and read it now. It says, a simple rule to live by. Pick up the stick. Don't ask who put it there. Don't ask who it belongs to. Don't ask if everyone else has picked up as many sticks as you have. Don't ask if it's your job. Just pick up the stick. If you pick up the stick, you will find the next person will pick up a stick, and so on and so on. Pretty soon there will be no more sticks. Even if you're the only person picking up sticks, someday there will be no more sticks, and the world will be a better place for it. So, in your day-to-day activities, take time, bend down, and just pick up the stick. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks to all the speakers. Some amazing words already this morning. And thanks to all of you for being here. When we were getting ready for this, we could only have wished that we'd had this kind of turnout. It's probably been about 5 years, even more, since the idea of having an arboretum on this cemetery property first became the topic of a conversation that Mark and I were having. And over that time period, it's been a long time coming, there's been a lot of people, a lot of organizations, and a lot of groups that have had an impact on driving this dream of an arboretum forward. So before I offer a few thoughts on what this day means to me, I want to take a minute just to thank a number of people. First and foremost, the cemetery team. They do such an amazing and prideful job keeping this wonderful property looking beautiful, and the larger parks team for all the work they do in support of that. I want to thank especially the public lands administrative team, most notably Luke Allen, Valerie Hutzel, and Brandon Fleming. They provided amazing support to our team with signs and maps. Hopefully everyone got a brochure for the Arboretum tour, and for setting up this event today. They do amazing work behind the scenes, and I'm really happy to work with them. There's also a number of amazing groups. The Friends of the Cemetery was mentioned, the Greater Avenues Community Council, our Peanut Board, our Parks, Natural Lands, Urban Forestry, and Trails Board has been supportive of us all the way along the way, just as the City Council and the Mayor's Office, but also all the residents who, in their own way, made a difference in helping this Arboretum become what it's about to be. To me, they show me that the power of a caring person can really make a difference, and especially when we all work together. So thank you to all of you. I also want to especially acknowledge Tree Utah. Amy May, the director of Tree Utah, and her team organized an amazing volunteer planting event here last week and put 40 new trees in the ground, many of which are going to be a part of this cemetery arboretum collection. They've been a pleasure to work with for a few years now, and we can't wait to continue to do that. Thank you, Amy, and your team. I want to recognize the Urban Forestry Division entirely. Every arborist on this team has played a role in getting this cemetery and this arboretum ready for today. The work they do, the professionalism that they bring, and the skill that they bring, no matter the challenge, and there have been some amazing challenges over the last couple of years, is something that we should all look to. It inspires me, and it's a great privilege to be associated with the amazing work that they do. More specifically, out of this urban forestry team, I want to recognize Megan Roy, who is our newest team member. Megan was challenged by our team to pick up this arboretum application process and bring it over to finish line. And I know it was something that was maybe out of her comfort zone and not necessarily something she had been a part of before, but she's done an amazing job, and you did it, kid, so thank you. You can have the rest of the weekend off and then report for further assignment on Monday, please. I also want to thank former urban forestry team members. Mary Beninati was an area forester for us who got our arboretum project off the ground a couple of years ago. I see Lyle Hagan out in the audience. It's great to see him again, a longtime great arborist for our city. Of course, Julie. Julie, when I first came here, really kind of introduced to me what urban forestry was in Salt Lake City. She's truly one of the most knowledgeable arborists I've ever known, and a dear friend. I also want to thank Bill Rutherford. He's not here today, but his legacy of tree planting exists in every part of this city, including this place where we're at here today. He's had a role in planting many of the trees that are a part of this collection, and I know he's a beloved forester, and hopefully he hears about this today and it makes him happy. Last but not least, I want to thank Mark Smith, a great man who I can't say much more than has already been said, but it's his service and commitment to this property that have inspired the arboretum that now bears his name, and that means a lot to us. So here we are. We're about to open Mark's Arboretum, the city's arboretum, a collection of trees throughout these grounds. It's a collection that I believe has the purpose of inspiring us, of teaching us, and of helping us remember what's most important. This is a special moment for me personally. I suspect it is for a number of people here. But why is it special? What is it about trees, or what is it about this place that makes this special? And why is an arboretum on these grounds special? As Councilmember Wharton shared, Mark used to say that cemeteries are for the living. And I remember when he first said that to me, because I paused and I thought, well, I never really thought about that before, but of course he's entirely correct. And when I look at it now, I mean, it's that simple and eloquent statement that I think reveals the truth of why putting an arboretum on this grounds is so special and so fitting. The cemetery is indeed for the living, and so are the trees that we have here. Trees in many ways are the epitome of life, and our connection to them, much like our connection that we share with each other, is incontrovertible. We can forget about it at times, and we can ignore it, but it's always there, even if it's just in the back of our mind. Our connection to trees is so universal that we don't think about it, but it's so powerful that it moved generations of Salt Lakers to transform a parched and windswept and sun-scalded valley into a forest. Now, many of us here have probably heard of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. They're one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. And as legend tells it, this is the city of Babylon flourished with trees terraced on many different levels, and it was a sight to behold. And these trees were there uniquely, not for sustenance and not for shelter, but they were cultivated for pleasure and comfort. Now, as a city forester, that story fascinates me, but it turns out that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon are the only of the 7 wonders of the ancient world that can't actually be verified as having existed. It's entirely possible that these much revered ancient forests there were really just an idyllic construct of some poet's imagination. And who can blame the poet, really? It sounds beautiful. It sounds like a great place to live and work. Well, here in Salt Lake City, we don't need our imaginations to transform this harsh landscape into something that's comfortable and beautiful. We can walk up this road right here and turn around and look at a natural wonder of the modern world. And make no mistake, this city's connection to trees is remarkable in that way. We built this. The people who came before us built this. Now, we've all heard the expression, to see the forest for the trees. Well, in Salt Lake City, you can see the forest for the people, because that's exactly what it is. Ours is a legacy forest. We planted it for us and by us, and for those who will come after us. We have trees planted here to memorialize and honor the past. We have trees here today whose fruit nourishes us and brings us beauty. And then we plant trees today to guard and sustain our future generations. Today, the opening of this Arboretum on this beautiful property is literally 170 years in the making. It's the fruit of generations worth of hard work, commitment, progress, and memories. 170 years in the making, but the best part is, it's really just beginning. My hope, my wish for this Arboretum is that it will grow and adapt, and with the help of people and the appreciation of people, it'll endure for ages. Mark was right. Cemeteries are for the living, and so too are our trees. And I think, to me, that's what makes this day so special. So thank you all for being here. And without further ado, let's open this Arboretum. Welcome to Mark Smith's Memorial Arboretum. Now, our next order of business is going to be to go and unveil the sign. So if this group wants to kind of matriculate over towards the east side of the Sexton house, the speakers are going to get ready and get in order, and then we'll officially open the cemetery with the unveiling of the sign. Afterwards, keep in mind that we are going to have 2 different types of tours: a tour that walks around the trees in the direct vicinity of this property, and then another tour that gets onto golf carts and braves the dangerous cemetery road system in order to, we'll take care of you, don't worry, in order to see some of the trees that are further up the hill. There's refreshments. Please help yourself to that. And again, thank you so much for being here today, making it special.
You guys want to count it down for us? From 3, 2, 1.